Hello and welcome back to the Play It Forward podcast presented by PeacePlayers, the podcast where we lift up voices and stories of people working in their communities and networks to promote peace and equity. My name is Chinny and Emmett and I am your host. I'm thrilled to be here. For those of you who are viewing, I'm sure you can see this brilliant background that we have. And we'll get into that. It's just making me happy and making me smile. But on today's episode, we will be speaking to our very special guest on the brilliance of women's ability to transform trauma into power, that power that shifts and changes the world. Specifically, we'll be talking about the power and the presence of the Akashinga, an all-female anti-poaching unit in Zimbabwe that is revolutionizing the way animals are protected. I do want to make a small disclaimer here for our listeners and viewers. We're going to share some material that will discuss women who've been abused and poor treatment of animals that may be sensitive content and potentially be upsetting, just so you guys know. But moving forward, I can't even get into the show without introducing the most amazing, the most awesome, the most handsome Emmett Shepard, my co-host. Emmett.
Woo!
Yes, applause.
Guys, the applause. You guys gotta calm down. Guys, seriously, I'm just a normal person like you guys. What is going on, listeners? My name is Emmett Shepard. I'm the lanky and incredibly goofy co-host to the incredibly intelligent and beautiful Inside and Out, Chinny and Emmett.
Thank you. Emmett, you're amazing.
Chinny, I know he'll hate me for this, but this is a person who we're talking to today that I've done so much external research just for fun on. And in my eyes is one of the not biggest heroes, but just one of the most influential people I've ever got to read about. And just the fact that I'm in a virtual room with this person in a natural green room setting, I like to call it, but he's just someone that I'm really, really excited to talk to and kind of starstruck at the same time. So tell the listeners who we're talking to today.
So before I tell the listeners about this, I love when Emmett is pumped and ready to go. This opening that he just gave,
it's very rare. It's very rare.
Means that we're going to have an amazing show. And that being said, our guest today is an Iraq war veteran who served as a naval clearance diver and special operations sniper for the Australian Defence Force. In 2009, while traveling through Africa, he was inspired by the work of rangers and the plight of wildlife. Liquidating his savings, the International Anti-Poaching Foundation, the IAPF, was established to be the last line of defense for nature. Over the past decade, the IAPF was scaled to train and support rangers, which now help protect over 4 million acres of African wilderness. In his yes, she is the winner of the 2019 Winsome Constance Kindness Gold Medal, a prestigious international recognition for services to animals and humanity. He was featured in the newly released James Cameron documentary, The Game Changers, and is now releasing another documentary with James Cameron and the National Geographic about the Akashinga, which I am sure we will get into, but it doesn't stop there. His TEDx talk at the Sydney Opera House has been viewed by over 7 million viewers and translated into 27 languages. He has spoken at the United Nations and was featured in June's 2019's National Geographic magazine, has appeared on 60 Minutes, I think 3 times, and was recently recognized by the Dutch government as a gender champion for 2019. I'm going to exhale there.
That's it? Really? That's all?
And then I'm going to say, listeners and viewers, please help me welcome Damien Mander. Damien, you're the bomb.com. I've already said bomb.com in the beginning of the show. And normally I say that like way in the middle, but yes, you're the bomb.com. And welcome.
Chinny, Emmett, thanks very much for having us on today. Great to be here speaking with you guys and all the viewers. So yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And thanks for the intro. I think you stole all my material.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that's actually all we need. That's all we need. The episode's over.
Yeah,
so
thank you. That's for being on the show. We appreciate it. Yes, thank you. Right.
So Damien, there's I don't know if this has reached Zimbabwe yet or Australia, but in America,
I'm sure it has.
I mean, people are talking about it globally now. Within the streets, there have been whispers of an icebreaker king and sort of a person who comes through and starts conversations that need to be had with a soul-crushing and enlightening icebreaker.
Yes.
And that king happens to be me, sadly.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
yes.
But this is just, I don't make the rules. This is something I was born with. I can't control it.
You can't deny it, you know? It is what it is.
Today's icebreaker that I'm going to ask you before we dive into everything is, you have a billboard. You have access to a billboard that millions of people see every day. What is on your billboard? What's the message that you put on your billboard?
The big message at the moment is one that has affected us all as a civilization, as a global community that's been brought to its knees through this COVID pandemic.
Right.
We've all been affected. We've got millions of people dead, billions of people in lockdown, and trillions of dollars in international deficit, and that is a direct result of the way that we treat nature. So my billboard is this: doing good things doesn't give us credits to do bad things. We need to start in everything we do on a daily basis. Start to understand that we only have one backyard, we only have one nature, and we may talk about elephants heading towards extinction or rhinos heading towards extinction. The truth is, species come and species go. We are accelerating into the sixth mass great extinction, which for the first time in history is a human-created phenomenon. And if we don't understand the importance of this one backyard that we've all been given, nature, then we're going to become the endangered species. And so, look, I think it's getting, the narrative is getting louder and louder when we talk about climate crisis, global warming, when we talk about the linkages between nature degradation and this pandemic that's happened. And my one hope on the back end of COVID is that the tougher the situation has become for us as a global community, the greater the change will be on the other side. And that is essentially my hope. Regardless, we have an amazing team of conservationists, an amazing, working in an industry full of amazing people. Regardless, and I think this is the inspiring thing. We look at someone who's head of our like Jane Goodall, head of our advisory board, my personal mentor. Conservation it's not a pastime, it's not a hobby, it's not even a one of many careers. It's something that we all need to adopt in some aspect throughout our whole lives. Otherwise, there's going to be nothing left. And do you know what? Nature doesn't give a shit. Nature's been doing well for 5 billion years. We're the ones that have to change, because nature will adapt. And we won't be part of that future if we don't figure out how to make ourselves a part of it, not a part from it.
Yeah, exactly.
Damien,
exactly.
That was amazing. And if I'm reading that, it's changing my soul, especially the part, and I'm going to hold on to it. I don't know if you saw me pick up my pen and write down, doing good things doesn't give us credit to do bad things. That should be just like on a shirt. Period.
Yeah.
Right.
No, a tattoo. That should be a tattoo.
Right.
It is true that you have to be optimistic and stuff like this. Otherwise, you'll just get, the sixth mass extinction is something that, my family and I'm very aware of. We have a friend, Betsy Colbert, who wrote a book called The Sixth Extinction, which talks exactly all about that. And the first step in sort of solving a problem, like you said, is admitting that there is one. And for a lot of people, that's a big step to overcome.
Right. And I think Emmett, that's perfect. I would say also too, let's say the second step is accountability, right? How did you contribute to that problem? But this is, okay, well.
I don't think it's not a, it's funny you say that. I don't think it's a big step for us to overcome from a knowledge basis,
right? But
from a convenience basis. And we humans are creatures of convenience. We like to do things that are convenient or easier for us. We often take the easiest path. And when things like climate change and climate crisis and the changes that we have to make start to affect our personal lives, people will often take the easy route, or it's easier to deny it and find, the 0.01% of scientists that are against it and side with that because it suits our personal agenda. And that goes beyond climate change and definitely into other aspects of our lives. And it comes down to, I suppose, the lives we want to lead and who we are as individuals and as people.
100%. No, I have this really funny and weird story. And I know that it's exactly what you're saying. We are humans and of habit. And I had a friend, really good friend of mine, come visit me from Czech Republic. This is probably neither here nor there, but us being humans of convenience, we're in the grocery store because we're going to get something to eat. And she stops me and she's like, wow, you Americans are so lazy. You have already pre-boiled eggs in plastic packages for you to just grab and eat. And so I thought it was funny at the time, but it's exactly what you said, Damien. It's habits, creatures of convenience. But that convenience impacts the whole entire world. Like something as simple as having pre-boiled eggs in plastic packaging that's already ready for you so you can pick up and eat it in the car is also destroying the world at the same time, which is crazy. But anyway,
I think it's when our habits or what's convenient to us also creates, you know, what I call a flexible morality, things that we're willing to turn a blind eye to because they start to interfere with the easiness of our daily lives, or things that we don't want to accept or acknowledge, whether about something in a bigger picture or something about our day-to-day lives that we're leading.
Right.
So, you know, I call it the personal audit, and I'm constantly doing it and reevaluating myself, my values, who I am.
Right.
Nature's had 5 billion years to evolve. Evolution has no predetermined path. It is the cutting away of the bits that don't work and the retention of the bits that do, and moving forward. And as humans, we don't have billions of years. We've got a handful of decades at best to cut away the bits that aren't working, keep the bits that do, and grow. And that means to grow as humans. And if there's things there that are eating away at us or that we're not happy with, go out and change them.
Yeah.
Go and change them. You know, stand in front of the mirror and change them. Don't live being a person that you're not happy with. And you know, so I mean, I'm constantly doing that process with myself on sort of everything, you know, and I make changes. And I think being able to acknowledge things that can be changed, or where we've been wrong, or where you can improve. You know, we are all products of our past.
Right.
You know, we no one's perfect, but you know, I think that, you know, the only thing worse than doing something wrong is not acknowledging it and using that as a lesson to change.
Absolutely. So, you know what, Damien, and while we're on that thread, I want to bring it back to the fascinating work that you do. And I think the most pressing and most important place to start is just you, right? The foundation of this conversation should be about your journey and how you got to where you are right now. And I mentioned in the opening bio that you were a war veteran, and you served as a naval clearance diver and special operations sniper for the Australian Defence Force. And then you found yourself in Africa on this journey where you stumbled upon what seems like probably one of the greatest passions of your life. And I want to know about that. Please share that story with us.
Yeah, I mean, what I do is my life. It's my purpose, and I think purpose is probably one of the most elusive things or challenges all of us will ever face. It's finding purpose, and a lot of us go through life either not looking for it or unwilling to find it. I got lucky. I left Iraq fairly rudderless after 9 years of military service. I ended up in South America. To a lot of drugs and alcohol seemed like an easy way to soften the re-entry into society. After coming from a brotherhood of people that I was surrounded with, you know, working as part of special operations units, and the units were within Iraq, all male units. You're surrounded with people that are looking after your own life more than you care about it yourself, and you've got a mission. You know, whatever that mission may be, you had it, and then all of a sudden that stops, and you know, there's, you know, the network around you's gone, and the mission's gone, and you're trying to figure out what next. And I ended up in South America on a pretty slippery downward spiral. Eventually hit rock bottom, and that was, you know, a fortunate trigger for me to get my together and go and you know, figure out the next chapter. You know, and I sit here talking to what I assume is a largely American audience. In a country where I think it's like 30 odd veterans a day committing suicide. So it's a serious problem. You know, we want to send our kids off to fight the arguments of old men. We've got to be prepared to pick up the pieces when they come home. And I ended up in Africa. I'd heard about this anti-poaching conservation work, sounded like a romantic adventure. I came across, with my military background, I'd done well through residential property investment in Australia growing up. So I had cash behind me, and I had a unique skill set. And here I am seeing the rangers that were out there fighting for nature, in particular elephants and rhinos that were being hunted by paramilitary style units crossing international borders with automatic weapons, high caliber rifles. And it's like, okay, you know, there's a place for me here. There's a use. And to be honest, it was only going to be like a 6-month gig. It was more of an adventure. You know, I came to Africa looking for a fight, not a cause. And then it was seeing what the Rangers were going through, having come from working in Iraq within a $600 billion a year annual defense budget, so we could protect resources in the ground. And now you see, you know, we had anything we wanted, anything, you name it, it was there. And then you see rangers, these wildlife rangers fighting for the heart and lungs of the planet, biodiversity. Our future as a civilization is dependent on our willingness to preserve biodiversity. And here's this group of people getting paid shit, and they've got bugger all resources. It's like, you know, there's something here. And then a combination of that and seeing what was happening to animals. I set up the IAPF in October 2009, started with one person. Here we are 12 years later. We got 270 staff. We've got, currently under management, we've got over 7 million acres that we help protect. We are scaling an innovative solution to conservation, which is not only changing the face of conservation, but community development in rural Africa. And I think even in a broader context, the idea of law enforcement in society. And, you know, we didn't start out like that. I didn't sit there and map out this grand plan. I just got started. And of course, you know, when you're a hammer, everything's a nail. I came over with this military sort of macho mindset, and you know, we went out, we trained rangers in, you know, weapon handling and patrolling. A lot of the same tactics that we used in Iraq and in the military seem to be very relevant in protecting animals that were being hunted by these aggressive tactics. And that sort of became our dance space. And then it was over time just evaluating what we're doing. And looking at what was going on in conservation, looking at other industries that we see, you know, it's like having a constant war is not the answer. We had to find a way to reunite conservation with Indigenous communities because they'd become separated, and they were kept separated by bigger fences and more guns. And you know, these are communities that had managed their natural habitat for tens of thousands of years, and then all of a sudden, you know, with colonial influence across the continent, animal populations are dwindling. Everyone decides, oh, we've got an emergency. We need to kick these people out of the wilderness areas, put up fences, call them national parks, and protect them with guns. And you know that it just, you know, this is a realization. There's going to be 2 billion people on this continent by 2040. If we don't find a way, a long-term solution to have communities working with conservation, then there's going to be nothing left. That was in 2017. I mean, it took us 7 years to figure out what we do. 2017, we changed everything we knew about conservation and law enforcement, and we started scoping what would go on to become the first all-female anti-poaching unit in the world.
Very, very dynamic. You know, okay, so. Yeah. Okay. I'm just like taking it all. Emmett, do you feel the energy of me taking this all in? I mean, you were looking for a fight and you found a cause.
It's seeping onto me too. It's incredible. And do you have a follow up?
Yeah, I do. And I'm just curious because I mentioned passion. This is your passion. And you say, this is my purpose. And I'm curious when you knew that this was a purpose. I've been, not the same story as you. You know, I've dedicated my life to a sport, and then, you know, with those types of, when you really do everything with your soul, you know, there are highs and lows. I call them peaks and valleys. And when you're in that valley and you're trying to figure out what the next step is for your life, and you're figuring that out, and your passion then turns into purpose, it's a big thing. It's a big thing to know why you're living. And I guess my follow-up question here would be, when was that moment where you were like, this is why I've been placed on this earth. This is my purpose. This is what I should be doing. Do you have a particular moment?
Yeah, it was seeing a buffalo, a Cape buffalo, not to be confused with a water buffalo. The Cape buffalo is one of the most feared and dangerous animals on the African continent. And seeing a female that had her back leg caught in a wire snare, trapped at poacher's lay, and she'd been fighting there for 3 days. The rangers could look at the marks on the ground to determine how long she'd been struggling for. And she'd ripped her pelvis apart. You could hear the bones under the skin, and just the look in her eye. before she was euthanized, and she was euthanized, and she, she was euthanized. She started giving birth to a stillborn calf, and yeah, that's, I don't know. If I'd seen that a decade earlier, I probably would have just been, it's just another animal. But I suppose a bunch of years in Iraq and some world travel gives you a different lens through which to see and perceive things, and that for me was a turning point. And I burnt the boats. I sold everything I had and gave myself no second option or second plan. I invested everything I had into starting this organization and funding its expansion over the next couple of years.
Very cool.
Damien, before we get into sort of the Akashinga for our listeners and sort of who they are and how it was implemented, before any of that, I'm just curious, sort of, when you're in those initial stages of this foundation and trying to convince the community and local sponsors and funders like that, who for you was the hardest to get on the same page of what you were trying to do, and sort of hardest to convince for you, and how did you do that?
In the early days, I'd say one of the toughest things. Well, there was obviously you're a foreigner over here, trying to do paramilitary training in countries that have very high levels of sensitivities to potential military coups. But then also, I think it was second year, 60 Minutes comes out and does a doco. We got a lot of traction, some funding and attention for it. And, and then I would say a lot of the conservation industry almost became, a major obstacle. And it took a lot of time to really build a trust with the conservation industry. Organizations that used to publicly, call me out, or, just say I'm some sort of media charlatan. I now give keynote speeches at their AGMs to their board of directors, so but it's been a long time to turn that around. The political side as well, building up trust. And look at it this way, if I was someone from whatever country and came to America and set up some paramilitary training camp out in the bush, of course you're going to have the authorities there checking up what you're doing and wondering who the hell you are and what's going on very quickly. So you just got to contextualize it, and it's not an African thing; it's just a natural thing. Right. To have those levels of suspicion, and they're for a very good reason. Conservation has been used as a veil for people to come in and do espionage operations in the past in countries across the world. So, so to build up that trust took a long time. We lost everything in 2012. We were, down to a couple of $1,000 left in the accounts. Basically, I was out of the country for 2 years. We were trying to rebuild in other countries. Yeah. And then, we came back now, and we've got one of the largest conservation forces in the region, protecting one of the largest land portfolios. So it hasn't been easy. Would I change anything? No. They've all been fantastic lessons along the way. So it's nice. You can only play the hand you're dealt, and But one thing I'll say,
very well, yeah.
No, you know what? It's the same as Special Forces selection. There's nothing special about me, other than when everyone said it's too hard or it can't be done, I'm like, no, this, I'm not going anywhere. And it's been the same with this. Tell you what, perseverance. You're either stupid or stubborn, but if you persevere, you will get there.
No, just from a third-party perspective and how much I've read about you, Damien, and I don't want to assume anything, but the mindset that you have from that Special Forces sort of mantra of just like, I don't care how hard it gets, but I'm just going to put my head down and just keep persisting, sort of, is exactly the sort of foundational mindset you need to have in conservation, I feel like, because it is such a large scale problem,
Right. And I would take it on and say in life, right? In life, period. That drive, it's like something happens and a switch goes on in your head. And it's like, once the switch is on, that drive is unstoppable. And I think that that's what makes people the most successful at what they do. Hence, we have
it's true. You will succeed at something if you just stick at it, because you know what? All the other people that are trying to do the same thing, they drop off. They drop off along the way. Not all of them, but a lot of them, and then all of a sudden you're moving up the deck.
And, exactly.
you're gaining experience along the way, and all the setbacks. You know what I treat a challenge now as a blessing. You know, because it's something that I have to figure out a solution to with our team and get through it. And then after that challenge, you're stronger, you're more resilient.
Absolutely.
Things that used to worry me a couple of years ago, like I don't even like batter an eyelid about now. It's like, yeah, it's fine, it's cool, we've dealt with that, we know the answer. Or you know, there's bigger problems for us to be looking at.
Absolutely.
Don't worry about the noise, or don't worry about the negative I don't have time. That doesn't feature on my radar. We're so focused on our mission, who we are and what we do, and so sure about what we're doing that it really doesn't matter what other people have got to say.
Absolutely. Tunnel vision all the way. I love
Chinny
it.
relates to that on like a spiritual level.
I do. Like, and I would add,
I wouldn't have picked that.
You say more persistent, but I would add, you have to be crazy a little bit, because I'm a little bit crazy. You gotta be a little bit crazy to yeah, exactly.
But that speaks volumes to sort of that you know, what you had to implement for that first 16 in terms of the Akashinga. And I want to take it for our viewers to sort of have you give us sort of an overview of what is Akashinga. It's an all-female anti-poaching unit, one of the only armed all-female anti-poaching units in the world. And more so, how did it originate? But more so, what was the nuts and bolts of that first 16 like?
Yeah.
So, I mean, just for us to, I mean, even internally at board level to come to the, I mean, we were a largely male-led organization in a largely male-dominated industry in a very patriarchal society in rural Africa. And then, you know, looking at other industries getting ahead by getting more women on the boards, more women as CEOs, more women in management, and conservation sort of seemingly being left behind. But I did a lot of research on the deployment of women in Iraq and Afghanistan in a community basis, because the trust had been so broken between the men and the communities that they're trying to operate in. And there's only so many times you can kick someone's door in at 3 a.m. and put a gun barrel and a torch in their face and then expect to, you know, have some sort of, you know, good relation, a positive relationship with them. And then, you know, there's no example in history of an occupying force having a long-term good relationship with the local community. The only way you can stop being an occupying force and start being a partner is to win the hearts and minds. And we did more and more research on community development. We found an overwhelming body of evidence that tells us empowering women is the single greatest force for positive change in the world today. We then looked at other industries where women were being, other conservation programs where women were being deployed, but they were in a restricted role, almost as a form of tokenism. You know, where women were being portrayed as doing the full role, but weren't actually given the opportunity to do it. And undermined the women by not giving them the opportunity, but it also undermined the men that weren't getting their recognition for doing a lot of the dangerous stuff that the women were getting the publicity for. And so it came down to one thing for me: can these women be trained to do this job? And if the answer is yes, then let's do it. Because just on paper, the positives that we were noting from the research we were going through were suggesting that even from an economic standpoint, the pros on this are going to far outweigh the cons. That the final catalyst for me was I was in New York in 2017, and I was actually reading the New York Times online, and I came across an article about the US Army Rangers training women for frontline deployment. And a decade, almost to the month of reading that article, we were on a mission in northern Baghdad. We were in a convoy going through a checkpoint. I was in the third vehicle. The fourth vehicle got blown up. There's a couple of people at the checkpoint that got killed. We pushed through the contact zone, but we were quickly surrounded by local militia. I was sitting there. I was in the driver's seat of the third vehicle. I had a Dushka anti-aircraft gun pointed, you know, like inches from my head. We had no way out of there. And on that day, the US Army Rangers came in and extracted us and got us out.
Thank God.
Got us home alive. And so a decade later, reading that article, I'm thinking of the unit that saved our lives in northern Baghdad. That day is now training women to be Army Rangers. Then we should be training women to be wildlife rangers as well. And that's how that's how the concept got a green light. And internally with our board and then with some initial donors, and then we had to go through the process of convincing the local chief and the local government that we wanted to trial this program. And that in itself was another challenge that we went through. And eventually, all that was created was an opportunity, and the women did the rest. We were very, very quick into the program, where we realized that the women don't have any more to prove here. We, as a team of instructors, need to prepare these women for the environment that they're going out into, an area that had lost 8,000 elephants in the previous 16 years. They would be coming up against armed poaching units. They would be going through some of the most remote and hostile and arduous terrain on the African continent. Temperatures are over 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Patrolling over 20 miles a day with heavy packs and weapons, and then if they come across problems, they've got to track poachers again for, in some cases, days. But what we didn't realize when we set up the criteria, the selection criteria for the women, for no other reason than when I arrived in Zimbabwe had the lowest life expectancy in the world for a woman. It's 36 years of age. And so when we set this program up, we thought, well, if this program goes beyond the trial period, let's just create that opportunity for the ones that need it the most. And so the selection criteria were women that were survivors of serious sexual assault, domestic violence, AIDS orphans, single mothers, and abandoned wives.
Very cool. Very awesome.
Well, at the time, it's just, I suppose, because we had an Aussie filmmaker working with us, chatting with him, was just like, it's like, I don't know, Aussies, I think, are very similar to Americans. We always like to fight for the underdog. And that's there was no great thought process behind setting that criteria. But what we didn't realize when we did it is that we were getting the toughest.
Mm-hmm. Right. 3 great things. And this is brilliant. Kudos and bravo to you for one, doing your research to know that we should be inclusive and that women should be at the table. 2, understanding that women have nothing to prove. We are fully capable of doing the work if presented with the opportunity. And 3, discovering the women who need it the most, and really going in and understanding the power of women who need it the most, and the brilliance of being able to transform that into something great. So that was very, very empowering for me. I don't know, Emmett, if it's time.
Yeah, let's take a quick exhale. Let's put Damien on the hot seat, because he hasn't been on the hot seat yet
for a while. Yep.
So explain to Damien what we're playing.
Yes, Damien. So welcome to what we like to call the lightning round. Cue the sound. And it's just a fun round of us getting to know you, a quick rapid fire type of round where Emmett, our wonderful co-host here, will ask you a series of questions, and you have about 3 to 4 seconds. Let's drop it down with your wit. 0 seconds. No, just kidding.
0 seconds.
Answer the question, and that's it. It's really going to be fun. Emmett has his favorite phrase that he says, and that is,
Damien, don't worry at all. The questions, whatever answer you give, we'll judge you very heavily on each one of them, so it's okay.
Perfect. I'd expect nothing less and hope for nothing more.
Right.
Now, Chinny, you got your pen, you got your timer ready?
Let me tell you, before we get started, I have so many notes. Damien, you are like the king of anecdotes, and I'm like, oh my God, I could write this down. Like, okay, but yes, I got my pen.
Okay, Damien, I know you're a sports fan, I imagine, and the first question is, would you rather score a game winner at home or away?
At home crowd.
Home crowd. Okay.
It's an easy one.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Morning bird or night owl?
Night owl. Nocturnal.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Okay, cool.
Spring or autumn?
Spring.
Pancakes, waffles, or French toast? This is an American one. Sorry.
Sorry.
Pancakes. I think that's the only version of those 3 that you can do vegan.
Vegan. Oh, okay, vegan. Nice to know. Okay, cool.
Bungee jumping or zip lining?
Bungee jumping.
Okay.
white sand beaches or sky piercing mountains?
White sand beaches all
Oh,
the way
nice.
into turquoise water.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes.
Okay. Space travel or deep sea travel?
Deep sea.
Yeah. $1 million or 3 wishes. Now the caveat here is you can't wish for $1 million in the 3 wishes, and you also can't wish for more wishes, sadly.
3 wishes.
Superhero or supervillain?
For me,
No, just what you prefer.
I think we all like a hero.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
Singing or
There's
dancing?
enough villains out there. We don't need super versions.
Right.
Dancing.
Reading or writing?
Reading.
Ooh. Last meal that made you go, wow.
I cooked an awesome spread for a bunch of good friends the other night. So yeah, it was a bunch of vegan tapas, and the
Ooh.
company,
Very nice.
just the weather and everything was it was an awesome night. You know, good food is about bringing together good company, and that's exactly what it did.
Chinny, you writing that quote down? Good food is about bringing in good company.
Yeah. I know that though.
Last thing you learned from someone else?
I learned, one of the lessons I've learned, and I haven't been through any leadership colleges or university degrees or anything like that, but I learned, particularly with our management team, is just to trust and step back and let them create the solutions. You don't have to have the answer to everything. People are there to do a job, and you may have an idea or an answer in your head, but if you let people be creative, the answers they come up with as a team will generally be better than what you're thinking in the first place.
Very nice. Wow.
One person who inspires you.
Jane Goodall.
Shouts out Jane Goodall.
Jane.
And last one thing you want listeners to remember from today's episode.
Yeah, that we've only got one planet, so let's work with it, not against it.
Yeah. So you've made it through. That's it.
Yeah.
That's the lightning.
We'll tally your score. We'll tally
Yeah.
your score and let you know how you did later.
we
But
should
there's no
definitely do that.
trapdoor here. I'm gonna fall through.
Right. Brilliant job. Congratulations. So you can wipe the sweat off your forehead. You got through it. And with that being said, I want to transition and kind of dive deeper into Akashinga. You spoke to us about community buy-in, right? How important it was to get that, and how you can only have, busting down people's doors at 3 a.m. so many times for them to not have trust, and there be a lack of trust. And your fascinating journey on how to rebuild that trust. And you spoke about the framework of Akashinga and how you've been inclusive in bringing women to the forefront of that. And I want to talk a bit about PeacePlayers. I know you mentioned earlier in the show that you thought that this was just going to be an American audience, but we are actually all over the world. So we're in South Africa, Northern Ireland, Cyprus, Middle East, and the US. And so our listeners are a combination of that. And what I think is really special about what you do and how that aligns to what we do. So at PeacePlayers, we use the transformative power of sport to promote peace and equity. We typically use sport to bridge divides in historically conflicted communities. And it seems like Akashinga is right in that lines, where you guys are taking this transformative power of trauma, specifically women who have experienced hardships in their lives, to transform these victims of abuse by helping them harness the trauma as power, to be profound leaders in Akashinga and essentially help change the world. And I want to know, at what point in this brilliant journey of yours did you realize, you know what, that third bullet point that I mentioned earlier, we've got to give it to women who need it the most. And it's just the women. How did you know, like what? Because it's one thing to be inclusive and to say women need opportunities, but it's another thing to really go deep inside you and say, but what types of women and who are the women that actually need these opportunities? And how are we going to help them really lean into that leadership and create this transformative power to ultimately change the world, this Akashinga?
Yeah, I'd like to say there was some sort of real deep analysis on or research that led to that, but ultimately it was gut decision from it's like the underdog. It's like, what if if this thing is going to go further, then why not? Why should those that need it the most not have that opportunity? That's all there is to it. But you know, it has become, you know, the key ingredient in the success that we're having.
Absolutely.
And it was, you know, a lot of things, you know, I sit here today, and we you know, we're in such a great position in terms of growth and the funding that's been coming in, and the expansion, the employment of specialists, and the work we're doing with communities. But a lot of it's happened by accident along the way. We've made mistakes. But we've used those mistakes, as I said earlier, as lessons, and tested and adjusted. But I can, you know, I think the most profound thing is something that I realized over the last year, watching what's been happening in the United States with the law enforcement, and we had a unique situation when we started this program. We had a blank canvas, and I can sit here 4.5 years into this program, and I can say putting women into the forefront of law enforcement changes the dynamics of society for the better.
Absolutely.
I've built a career across 3 continents in training and deploying men. I've trained thousands of men in both law enforcement and the military context, and also in conservation. And so I'm not just speaking without a very strong background of experience that's been hard won. You know, and I come from the ultimate boys club of special operations. And here we are. It's like we're seeing something that is changing the world, and we couldn't have just gone into Chicago and said, "Hey, we're going to get rid of all the male police officers, swap them out with women, and see what happens." But with the large open spaces that we had and the lack of investment in conservation, we had blank canvases to go in and trial this program, and then to be able to test and adjust as we went forward. I mean, we work in some of them in countries that rank some of the lowest on the global corruption index in the world, and we haven't had a single incidence of corruption with the women. Women naturally de-escalate tension. We spend about 1/3 per acre per annum protecting the areas we protect, and what we were spending when we were deploying all male forces, and that's because de-escalation means demilitarization. So instead of spending money on helicopters and canine attack teams and drones and military-grade hardware, we are investing it into women who we've got something far more valuable than this biceps and bullets concepts of kicking doors down, and we have interpersonal relationships that are being driven by the women in the communities that they were raised in, and the communities that they're raising their own families in. And so we basically cut our core operating costs by 2/3. The first third invested into women is the most effective form of community development funding. The remaining 2/3 that we saved by not having to buy all this military grade hardware, we put it back into healthcare, we put it back into education, we put it back into water sanitation, and local rural development, roads, town halls, fixing up clinics, fixing up schools. And it seems like every dollar we spend on community development is $2 less we have to spend on law enforcement. And that's where this whole program shifted. We went from protecting a wilderness area to having communities that wanted those areas to be protected. We came from an inside out approach to an outside in. And we started, and that led to scale. We started with 1 reserve. We now have 8 reserves. In Zimbabwe, 1.3 million acres alone. We've got 240 staff in this country now. And we're not trying to sell this program anymore. We have other governments, other communities, senior leaders in local government coming to us and saying, please come and replicate this in our country or in our region. I think that's the best form of endorsement you can get when you're not trying to sell something anymore. You've got other people coming and saying, please, this is something we want. It's completely different. It's nothing we've ever experienced before, but we want it.
Yeah. You've hit on actually really 3. So we have core values here at PeacePlayers. One is seeing people as people, and you've done that by including women. 2 is that inside-outside transformation, when you go inside yourself and see how you've added to conflict, but also there's this inside transformation starts to form, so that you can really use that clear lens to see people for who they are and their brilliance and their power, and draw that out of them. And then the third is culture of collaboration. It sounds like Akashinga embodies all of that. The IAPF embodies all of those things. And for our young listeners, for me, this would be a dream to hear that and have the correlation between how we protect the earth and who we are as people. It's like you're shining the light on that. And I think that's amazing. And I this is really impromptu, but I want to read this quote. I think that you will have be appreciative of this, because it sounds like what you're saying. And it's a quote by Kofiana, and it's like, it says this: "There's no development strategy more beneficial to society as a whole, women and men alike, than the one which includes and involves women as central players." And it just sounds like that's what you're doing. I like the biceps, trading in biceps and bullets for EQ. I think women have very high emotional intelligence, and we are able to, like you said, de-escalate war, de-escalate conflict in ways that are inclusive of the communities and the people around us. And I really love that you've honed in on the brilliance of that transformative power there. So,
Damien, before we let you go,
you're welcome.
And we get your plugs and anything that you want to add, I just have sort of a final question in terms of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I assume that's the sort of model with Akashinga, and I've read that you're starting to expand the operation of Akashinga to different parts of Africa, and sort of, the idea is sort of to teach yourself out of the job in a way. In other words, to have the women themselves take over the program eventually. Right. And so in that capacity, what do you imagine is next for yourself specifically?
So I still, retaining a senior leadership role in the organization. When the women first come in, it's not like we're okay. Here's some equipment, here's a uniform. We're going to give you some training and go out and protect these areas. The first thing we ask them: what are your dreams? Right. What do you want to do?
That connection.
And this program is a stepping stone. We build career paths for these women. We provide any education opportunity that they want. We've got Niradzo just gave a lecture to Harvard Law School recently. Wow. This is a woman who now owns her own block of land, has built her own house next to a high school that she once couldn't afford to attend. Wow. And most of the women that are part of this program within 18 months have bought their own land, built their own house, and are doing some form of further education. We are working hard to build leadership within the ranks in an industry where women have been suppressed from having access to that experience. And so that does take time, but it has. We have a woman chief of staff or director of operations for our entire portfolio in Africa. Right. Our senior scientist here, More Angels, got a PhD from Oxford University. So it's and I think one of the most important things to highlight is that this wasn't just a matter of changing operationally, but we actually had to reinvent ourselves as an organization and go back. We had an independent. We actually ended up at 3, and it was done specifically by charter, everything about who we are, where we came from, our policies and procedures, and help rebuild the culture of the organization. Right. And I think that's a really important thing to highlight, because that cultural change does need to come to support what is a female-driven operation. Right. And that can be hard for some organizations to want to accept or want to acknowledge or go through that process, but it's been such a beneficial thing for us. Absolutely. We now have a far more rounded organization. We have women leading women in these roles that were once exclusively reserved for men.
No, it has to happen. I'm with you, Damien. I'm like, yes, I'm all powered up here. It must happen. There needs to be a reinvention. In order for there to be equity, you have to reinvent yourself. You can't use the same metrics that you've been using all these years and hope for real true change. You got to be able to go get that inside outside transformation, look inside yourself and figure out how to do that. I'm sorry, I'm charged here.
The birds are chirping. The birds are chirping, which means we got to wrap it up, because it's been incredibly beneficial to have you on, Damien. And before we let you go, do you have any plugs? Where can people find you, follow what you're doing, donate if they want?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that. IAPF.org. Get online, have a look at what we do. You can also Google IAPF Akashinga. You can see the James Cameron doco has been released. You can find that online. It's on YouTube now. Yeah, it's cool. Hey, you got James Cameron wanting to make a documentary about the work that these women are doing. It's a great accolade for them. There's been some really good publicity, and there's going to be more to come. This is showcasing to the world the change that is being made here in Africa, and Zimbabwe is ground zero for that. And I've almost become the student in so many ways, being part of this program. And it's great to see other organizations adopting what we've helped play a role in expanding. So please learn about what we do. Of course, we're a nonprofit. We appreciate support. But thank you so much for having us on today. Appreciate what you guys do. Respect what you guys do. And I guess I'll see you out there on the beach somewhere.
The white sandy beaches with the blue water. Sorry, turquoise water. Thank you so much. This is
a dream. This was a dream come true for me. Honestly, it's an absolute honor and a pleasure to talk to you, and the fact that you're just sitting out in the sticks right now is so indicative of the passion and love you have for what you do, and it's infectious. It really is.
Very, very nice. And that's it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening and joining us on this amazing journey. If you like what you heard, we encourage you to like and subscribe. We've got many more brilliant conversations and stories to share in the coming weeks. Like I always say, share with a friend, leave an amazing review. And I normally would insert a review here, but this show has changed my life.
Yeah. And that's your review. That's the review. That's the review.
Some
of the quotes. Give us one of the quotes. Give us one of the quotes. What's our favorite one?
Doing good things doesn't give you credit to do bad things.
Do you hear that, people? Say that one more time. Say that one more time.
Doing good things doesn't give you credit to do bad things. What else do I like? You cannot. Being an occupying force will not bridge partnerships. Women rule the world. He said that many times, but I'm just gonna throw that
Chinny
in.
rules the world. He also said that many times.
Thank you. So no, Emmett, please, your thoughts. This is amazing.
He is so humble, so does not want to be put in the spotlight. He's someone who, clearly people gravitate towards. He's just a natural born leader in a lot of ways, but doesn't want to lead. And that's just a very infectious personality trait to have. And you can tell in this conversation. And I was starstruck. As you said at the beginning, it's very rare for me to be starstruck or excited. I didn't really need coffee this morning. This was someone who I was just incredibly excited to just be near, even in a virtual setting. And so it was truly amazing.
Fantastic.
But you can learn more, Chinny, about PeacePlayers by visiting us at our website, www.peaceplayers.org, and following us on social media, mostly at PeacePlayers International. That's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Tumblr, MySpace. No, just kidding. Those last two, they don't. Nobody uses those anymore. Nobody. It's okay. Chinny, I gotta go lie down because I have a lot to process. And he gave us so many quotes that not only am I going to hang up on my wall, I might tattoo on my back because I need people to constantly remember them.
Right. Especially as you walk away. Yeah.